Well. So I played a gig at the weekend.
At a rock and roll venue.
Yeah, I suppose we should start with that.
In London City.
In that London.
In Hammersmith Odeon.
yeah, Hammersmith Odeon, yeah. And I went out into the seats and tried to start a mosh pit, you know. That always fascinated me. Do you remember the Dark Angel video, the three-way thrash, which for some reason Candlemass are on it, which I don't really understand, but DAM, Dark Angel, and he goes down into and there's people just sitting on their chairs going, that always, when I was a kid, I always thought, oh, right, do all venues have seats? Or
there's like in the Nuclear Assault video, because it was a separate, they had enough standing to have a separate standalone VHS from that gig.
Really?
John Connolly stage dives into the crowd, like onto the seats, and it's like, oh, my back is really sore. And I got another VHS of them playing there, you know, with Agent Steel and Onslaught a couple of years before, and he does exactly the same thing. So,
but like that was, it's just such a weird thing. Like, why would, like what's the capacity of that Hammersmith Odeon? Was it about 2,200 or something, 2,400?
Yeah, about 2,000 to 3,000, something like that.
Why wouldn't you put a heavy metal band in a place which doesn't have seats? I don't really understand. Maybe there was no venue at the time.
Well, all those Odeons were all originally like kind of commissioned by the Crown. It stands for Oswald whatever entertains our nation. The Queen had them all built as comedy theaters in the 30s or 40s or whenever the fuck it was.
Really?
So you can't take the seats out of the Hammersmith Odeon. They're always just there, you know.
Okay, so what's my name, Mrs. Miggins, sort of like vaudeville kind of stuff. Okay.
Yeah. That and then the glory of DAM live in action. Look.
Yeah, I think even when I bought that video because I wanted Candlemass and I wanted Dark Angel, even then DAM just, I remember being at 15 or something and just I couldn't fathom, like, how is this band playing to this many people? I know you're a DAM defender. I don't.
I like him, but I remember seeing that video and a couple other ones from that era in Hammersmith, like Agent Steel or stuff where like Atomcraft. And like they're releasing a VHS where they go down really badly, like where at the end of the song there's silence, you know, it's like no one is enjoying this. It's 4:30 in the day, you know.
Yeah, I mean, but that was the thing back in the day. They had the cameras set up, and they were like, "Look, the cameras are there." I mean, you've seen. I remember buying a what was the fucking DVD? Was it Venom? I'm not sure. And they used to have ads for other little bits, other shows before it. And there was one for like Nazareth live in London. And it was like them playing to like 60 people, nothing. Wishbone Ash playing Kill the King, or not Kill the King, Throw Down the Sword. To about 30 people just going. And then Warlock, everybody jumping around. I can't remember what the actual video.
Yeah, the Warlock one was like the Town and Country Club where like Wasp and the Pogues and all those guys did like good videos.
That's it. Yeah, exactly. And but it's just like, hey, we have the video camera set up. Do you want to roll? Yeah. Like even the Thor one, which I think is in Camden, St. Palace or something. It looks like about 100 girls off the street or something. It's bizarre, like because we, you know, when you consider. Some of the videos from the time, which were just, you know, like would literally have you on the edge of your seat, and you're like, why did you release this? It must be a contractual obligation or something like that.
Like you're a Venom fan, obviously, you know, 7 Dates of Hell, Holy Hell. Look at Hammersmith Odeon, this is amazing. And then Venom Live 90, where they played in like the marquee. It's like,
just hold that thought for one moment. That's not going to look good on a look at that.
Yeah,
it's
actually, you know what? I wish I had it. Like upstairs, I do have Venom Live 90s sitting about somewhere.
Yeah, no, I mean obviously I collected them all, but yeah, that was a Sound Cellar special. I've been trying to get the original VHS of that back in the 80s for years, and every year I mithered Tommy down in the Sound Cellar, which is a record shop in Dublin, in case you don't know, in case you're from another place. And he just goes, here, I found this in the back, and it was like the Holy Grail had appeared.
It's an amazing photo shoot on the front, isn't it?
Yeah, it's fucking class, all right. And it's a great show, but yeah, the crowd are just kind of like standing in their seats, you know.
Massive explosions going on stage. Like it's like Venom were the masters of spend your entire guarantee on fireworks, like, weren't they?
But you know what? My favorite bit, well, not my favorite bit, but one of the greatest bits about that video is that on the ramps up above the drum kit, there's 666. But they're like sort of, you know, the sort of numbers that you would put on your, you know, the front of your house. You know, those kind of old you know, kind of like 72, blah, 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 High Street or whatever you come from. So they were kind of like big versions of the numbers that came off your garage door. Not like cool 666. So it was just, because I remember watching it going, oh, they're just like the numbers on our garage door outside, you know? That wasn't my takeaway, but you understand, you know?
There's always a bit of a sort of thrifty vibe about that. The Agent Steel one from Hammersmith, they bought Gary Newman's light show, all his like lights that he'd used for a tour in like 1984. It's like all these big glowing, flashing panels and shit like that, and then repurposed them.
Is that the one where they're wearing the orange boiler, the Guantanamo boiler suits?
Yep.
So that one is Kurt Kilfeld or James Murphy's playing on that one, isn't he?
James Murphy's on that one, yeah.
James Murphy, wow, yeah. I remember trying to get the original. I mean, is that on its own VHS or is it on a split VHS?
Yeah, and again, the same sort of thing. Like, I think Photodisc or whoever used to release those VHSs, they would film one entire show and then release 2 or 3 VHSs off the show, you know?
Yeah. Photodisc, yeah, that was the name. They used to kind of like release shite compilations of, I don't know, didn't they have a sort of, no doubt they were from somewhere in the Midlands. They were probably from like Bury or
Leyland or something like that. I think so it is.
And they would have a kind of a record label side who would release like compilations of Angel Witch songs nobody heard from the second and third albums or something like that. Yeah. Communications. It was called Communications Records or something like Communications Records. Yeah, exactly. I don't know.
Yeah, so we have plenty of awful VHSs anyway sitting about. We'll do some sort of amazing VHS countdown someday on here.
Yeah, I went through a wooden box in my parents' house, and I found some old Manowar VHSs, and then just a random VHS, which just was like Lenny Riefenstahl Triumph of the Will. So I was like, oh, I just found a Manowar VHS, and well, I thought, okay, we'll best put them back in the box. And you know, what was that about? Who knows? It was the night.
I don't know. You know, it'll be one of those things like where you probably heard about it whenever you were a kid, and you're like, yeah, I better go and check this out. And then someone stole your Manowar VHS and replaced it with that or something.
It's still completely arbitrary bullshit. And there was a VHS of Bottom. You remember Bottom?
Yep. Indeed.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And then but yeah, the Venom Live 90s. So that was kind of like, that was post Primeval Venom, which had Mantis with the guitar with no neck.
They were kind of on a bit of an upturn though at that stage, weren't they? Because like they had made those albums in the sort of second half of the 80s that had been so badly received, and Primeval kind of went okay for them, didn't it?
Well, I mean, to us it went okay, and I still stand by Primeval as a very good record. In fact, I think it's probably better than Possessed, really, when you think about it. You know,
I would say that after the first two, it's my fave. You know,
really, I couldn't put it above any of the first three. But certainly Possessed is such a fucking, a messy, noisy, awfully made records. There's some cool songs on it, Too Loud for the Crowd. Satanicist is great. I mean, how Nightmares came out after that and is such a step back up is quite interesting. But Primeval certainly, I remember that was one of my favorite records of that year, whatever it was, 1989. But then watching them play live and you're like, wow, Mantis has just stepped off that. His solo album, Deceiver, he just stepped straight off that with the bouffant kind of fluffy hair, and this other guy playing the guitar who was from that band, some other Geordie with fabulous hair.
Al Barnes, the guy who plays guitar in that, ended up, did he sing for someone? Did he take over singing for like Sabat or someone like that? I know that he sang for some band. I can't remember who the heck it was.
Wow, okay. Do you think so? No, I mean he didn't sing on Morning Is Broken then, did he? No. That was some other guy.
It's like, you know, whenever sometimes you see horrendous flyers and there's like brackets ex Venom guitar player. Oh yeah. I remember seeing a flyer for Oliver Dawson Saxon. And whenever it said whatever the guy who sang for them's name in brackets, it said Slash's best friend. So that was his qualification why he should be an Oliver Dawson Saxon,
I got him free to see Oliver Dawson Saxon once in the 1990s because they'd sold no tickets and somebody booked him into the music center and they were just handing out free tickets in the record store. And you know what? They were fucking great. It was maybe like 95 or something. Like, who would care? I mean,
we inquired about booking them in Uri in the late 90s because we heard they were so cheap. Someone's like, yeah, their guarantees like 400 quid or something. We were like, wow, Saxon, there's 400 quid.
Yeah, well, no, they were great actually. Yeah. And that Saxon show, I mean, they played in Dublin in 1990, so that was Rock the Nation, was it? Maybe
no, I think that's like the Dogs of War or something like that.
Is it? Not sure.
I think Rock the Nation's like after Sweet and Innocent, like late 80s when they were still being booked into venues that were too big. Innocence
is No Excuse is what, 86? Because you got Crusader, 84.
Crusader, Innocence is No Excuse.
Which is an album that I absolutely love. I adore Innocence is No Excuse. I think it's a huge kind of stadium rock record. I think it's fucking brilliant. I love it. But
it's only really after Rock the Nation things properly started hitting the skids,
Yeah. So they played in Dublin 1990, and I think there was about 50 people there in McGonagall's. I mean, I bought a ticket. I bought a ticket to see Kronos solo tour in Dublin, and there was like you could see the tour dates were like Dublin, Dundalk, Athlone, etc. And I was like fucking Kronos, brilliant. Bought my ticket, and then it just because the album Dancing in the Fire was it's not. I remember I loved it at the time. And then they're kind of like, oh fuck, it was cancelled. And then saying to the guy,
wonder why would that get cancelled?
Yeah, what the fuck? And the record store guy was just like, well, you were the only cunt who bought a ticket. Like ticket sales of 2 or 3 maybe or something like this, But like Diamond Head and stuff came over and played in Dundalk or Drogheda or something.
Yep, it indeed. And like back then, even like I remember talking to Acid Rain, and they were talking about how great Drogheda was, or Derry and stuff like that. So
yeah, I mean depending on what kind of band you were, I could say you could get 100 150 there, probably more than you got in Dublin. Like, who were the band you were telling me about? Was it Gangrene, who did like they did the Cool Show and then they were like, all right, we're recording this one, and it was Dublin with no one cared, or what?
Yeah, there was like a couple of hundred people at the gig in Dublin. We were supporting them on like a tour years ago. And in Belfast, it was on Paddy's Day, and there was like literally 15 people in the audience. Like, ouch.
Oof. Yeah. And what do you think was the reasoning behind the orange jumpsuits on the Agent Steel video?
Sarah said that it was because
you have some insider knowledge of this.
Sarah said that it was because they were trying to go for like a NASA look, and they had originally approached NASA about buying spacesuits or whatever to wear on stage, and NASA were like, piss off. So they're like, okay, instead of going for spacesuits, they went down to some like combat exchange in Florida and bought a load of orange jumpsuits.
Wow. Because it sort of took on a sort of different resonance, as the sort of post-Guantanamo resonance, But yeah, James Murphy. I remember watching that, wondering at the time, why have they got all these lasers and kind of stuff? When you watch the video for the 7 Gates of Hell, there's all these lasers and stuff going on. You're like, this is pretty cool. That quite impressed 14-year-old me. But the Agent Steel one didn't really.
No, not really. I think they thought that it was going to be like a really cool, like Ridley Scott type production or something like that, and maybe it would have worked better if people had been enjoying it. But like, it's one of those VHSs where like after every song it's just like crickets, and I think it was people were there to see like Onslaught and Nuclear Assault, and Agent Steel were just on,
But have you ever seen the on the bonus disc of the reissue of Omen Battle Cry? There is Live at the Country Club 1984-85, and it's Omen supporting Slayer, and it's one of the most amazing. Like the crowd is literally no reaction, just like, and the singer does this amazing thing. They have the intro, and he's blah 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 whatever, and he has huge hair. I guess it is J.D. Kimball, I suppose, and he somehow seems to produce an axe from within his hair out, and he's like, give him the axe, man. But his hair is so big, he's managed to hold and hide an axe, not a big axe, admittedly, but an axe.
Yeah, more of a hatchet.
Yeah, it was a butterfly axe, but just behind his head. and then he
Right.
introduces it to like a crowd of whatever
Unimpressed people who are like,
yeah.
Claire have got like blood coming out of their mouths
Yeah.
and upside down crosses to point at you and stuff.
Yeah,
Like, you know,
they're wearing like armor and stuff, you know, and whatever, and the crowd is like Slayer, 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 and it grows between the songs. So people are just thinking, and they just released it as fuck it, we'll just release it, you know.
they're one of those bands, really, aren't they? That like they really only had like a Californian career. Like, I don't think that they had like even had much of a listenership on the East Coast or anything like that. You know,
No, I can't imagine. So I mean, I love those first few records. I mean, the second one, what the fuck is it called? Fuck.
I can't remember.
Don't fear the night. Whatever that. Don't fear the night. That one is one of my. That's a great record. Me and Brian, me and Slagle from Metal Blade did a 5 video thing of 5 my favorite old albums from old Metal Blade, and the second one.
Yep.
Fuck is it called? I could just look over there, but that would mean I disappear off screen for the second time in 15 minutes, which is pretty unprofessional, really, when you think about it, isn't it?
There you go.
Yeah. So I have.
I can't remember, man. I remember listening. Like, I was a fan around the same time as like discovered a lot of that LA, Los Angeles kind of stuff, like Savage Grace and stuff of that nature. You know.
Savage Grace. Mm-hmm. Did we talk
But
about?
they were kind of stepped down the ladder. They were on New Renaissance, and like New Renaissance was At War. Those guys. Halloween, not Halloween.
Yeah.
Lizzie or not Anne Boleyn. What were they called again? Hellion.
Hellion. Yeah. Well, I quite like the Black Book and stuff. I mean, Hellion is a sort of. It's like kind of like be King Diamond light, but it's still not bad. There's some killer riffs and stuff.
Apparently, there's an accompanying book. Because, you know, she claims to have like actual lineage to actual Anne Boleyn. So she does. So,
do you think that's true?
I don't know. I know she's a lawyer nowadays, so I'm not going to dispute it.
Well, hey, they came back though. There's footage of them playing online, which for some reason I watched. Actually, I would say I listened to the new Hellion EP with the guys from Niflheim, who were like raving about it. They were like super Alan, you must listen to this. Blah, 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 blah. I don't know if you know the twins. Their enthusiasm is infectious, let us say. And so they were like, so we sat down and we had a drink and we listened. I was like, that was actually pretty good. Like that last Hellion EP was not bad at all. But New Renaissance actually made versions of the second and third Bathory albums for the USA.
Did they?
Yeah, I have a New Renaissance Under the Sign of the Black Mark there. And
was the deal basically kind of same as like, did they do a Sepulture one as well? Maybe as well, did they? I don't know. Like, it seems like if you couldn't get a license deal with Combat or something like Sodom, they'd be like, right, okay, New Renaissance is the way to go.
I have the Obsessed by Cruelty Metal Blade version there as well. And when I was at Metal Blade a few years ago, I found the tin reel of their Obsessed by Cruelty, which I wanted very much to own. But I couldn't quite claim ownership of it. But because it's a different version, to the European version. But yeah, no, I mean, New Renaissance had some bands though. They had some bands. And then they resurrected a few years ago, and I think they found that the climate was a little bit.
I know, it's like, and I always feel, for someone like Sentinel Beast or even Viking. Like Viking in the late 80s, some people actually kind of into them,
Yeah, I have Do or Die, and was it Men of Straw? Was the second one?
But same as like Defiance. I think a lot of those bands got back together expecting there to be like a lot of fans and stuff, and there was just no appetite for them even playing outside California or anything of that nature,
No, I mean, a band like Viking, probably if you looked at their sales sheets from back in the day, we're probably still able to sell the 7,000, 8,000, 9,000 records, I imagine, somehow. I mean, I have, like I said, I have Do or Die, and I have Men of Straw there somewhere in the racks, and they were okay. I just remember them more that they gave a guitar player to Dark Angel, didn't they?
They did indeed, yeah. I think they were Christians, though. They were kind of part of the, like Deliverance and some of those other thrash bands from around there, like,
That would make sense, actually, yeah. And because I think that guy, is it Brett Erickson? This is proper deep dive nerd stuff.
Yep.
He plays on the through a thrash video instead of Jim Durkin, I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
And he also played on Time Does Not Heal, I think.
Yep.
Oddly enough, I have some five
Brilliant.
records. I have 5 records here that are conversation prompts, which won't be very good if
Ooh.
you're listening. One of them is indeed the Leave Scars discussion.
Scars.
The discussion that's been going on in the thrash metal scene for 30 years.
So
Personally,
do us a favor and tell us, I know that it was made in California, but it wasn't produced by Randy Burns or any of the usual characters, or like made it, you know.
I'll put on my glasses and tell you.
Reading glasses.
What is the question again?
Who produced it and where was it made?
Executive producer Paul Schenker. Produced by Michael Monarch and Dark Angel. Engineered by Michael Monarch. Earl West, Paul Gordon. Recorded and mixed at Space Station Studios, Hollywood, 88.
There you go. 88.
So there's no mention of Randy Burns anywhere in the back of this.
No, because I was wondering, like, it's an album that I think stands out for sounding crap. Like, you know, it's like I don't think it sounds anywhere near as good as there are, you know, other records. Like, you know.
No, I mean, I love it. And this is a weird version. I got this off my uncle, who got it for some reason to review. I don't know.
Right.
He used to write for Hot Press magazine, and he got it to review and gave it to me. And I had it before the record store at the time. I shall take this off now. And before the record store at the time had it for months. And I don't know if anybody, this is super nerdy now, is that the purple cast on the photos is not the same on this vinyl as on other vinyls. My vinyl seems to be darker with the photo cast, and the cover is a slightly different, like the colors are slightly different to normal. That's proper nerd shit there. You don't get more nerdy than that.
Do you have a copy of Live Scars as well, the wonderful Under One Flag rip-off EP?
I do. Of course I do, yeah.
They loved a bit of that as well, didn't they? Like, there's so much of that around that period, kind of like Forbidden at Dynamo or Testament at Dynamo.
Right.
Like, yeah, again, never any real effort to mix it to sound good. It was just like,
no,
we've got an FM broadcast, let's just bring it out here. Look.
Yeah. I mean, the Forbidden one, yeah, Sacred Reich. Fuck, it was like the live EP was a sort of staple of the thrash scene at the time, you know. Yeah. I mean, Live Scars, I don't know. I'm not going to keep running back and forth and find it, but it's somewhere over there, you know.
It's not recommendable either, is it? Like no. If you saw someone said, should I spend €10 or €8 on it, you'd say no, not really. Like, it's not.
It depends. I mean, I love Leave Scars. I love it because I loved at the time when it came out. I loved Persecution Mania. I was getting into death metal, and it seemed to be the bridge between thrash and death metal, but it was horrific. Like, it's claustrophobic and nasty, and already it kind of appealed to the part of me that was tape trading, that was starting to listen to Morbid Angel. And like, so it wasn't such a stretch, but for, let's say, an Anthrax-y, Testament-y fan, I could see that it was just like, what the fuck is going on? And then they went into Death and Chuck called Tuneless Assholes or something like this.
Like, my problem was more like Reinhardt on the production, because I really, really loved Darkness Descends and loved the drum sound and just the evil. It does certainly have that kind of same as Spectrum of Death, kind of super loose, evil kind of sound about it. But
well, I mean,
I don't know what it is about Leave Scars I don't like. It's never really sat with me. Like, there's good tunes on it, but it's not that
for me, what I like about it is its unrelenting claustrophobicness. It's like trudging through molasses or something, in that it's so overcooked. This may sound really weird, but it reminds me of the thing I love about Deathspell Omega or Funeral Mist and Modern Black Metal, is that Leave Scars is punishing. Like, it's a punishing listen, and you follow the lyrics and you're like, Jesus Christ, this is dark. And the production is ratchety and rough. And there's like, I mean, it's a part of me that likes that. I guess it was super underground, loved it. But at the time, I could see for thrash metal fans, it was like, what the fuck? This doesn't even sound mixed. You know what I mean?
But it sort of sounded to me like they should have made the album in Florida with Morrisound, you know, because like there was a whole bunch of bands in '89 and stuff like that, or even '88 and stuff, who were making very aggressive sounding albums at that studio, you know. And they did like Transcendence by Crimson Glory, and
they did Slowly We Rot. And I mean, for me, the idea that
Unstoppable Force and stuff. So
yeah, I mean, Leave Scars to me is more in tune with some of that late '80s death metal than thrash metal at the time, you know. But there's just, but also it also it contains one of the worst covers of all time, which is the Immigrant Song. Like, who thought that was a good idea? Is that just too much cocaine or what?
Is there two on it? Is there another cover, or am I making that up?
No, there's a bullshit thing called Worms, which is just like, wah, wah, like just string noises. But there is, I'm not going to put on my glasses again, so I have to hold it at arm's length. There is, Immigrant Song, which is a cauterization, which is a pointless instrumental. But the Promise of Agony, where
never to rise again and stuff. There are some good ones.
The Promise of Agony, when it slows down to the end riff, that in the second half of the song is one of the greatest. That's one of the best parts on the whole album. I mean, what I love about it, is that disgusting. You know, I mean, you have
also like with Dark Angel fans, it kind of, you're either a fan of the first two albums or the second two albums, really, at the heart of it, you know.
No, I'm a fan of all of them. I mean, I like the way we have arrived, that sort of speed metally, high pitched vocals, and you know, Hell's on its knees and the speed metal riffs. Like I like them. The one that never really sat with me was Time Does Not Heal, because by the time that came out, it was the same moment as Blessed Are the Sick, and it was 91, so I was beginning to get it. I mean, I was tape trading for Barrett and Rotting Christ and stuff, and I was like, ugh, somehow worship him. I remember getting that, and then Time Does Not Heal. Do I really want to listen to this sort of super overproduced? But now when I listen back to it, I enjoy it. But it's very overcooked, and I mean,
and it's too long, and the songs. I don't know, like, again, I think that you either like the more concise stuff from the early days or the more tacky and proggy they get. And
also, let's be honest, that cover is fucking...
I think it's good.
Do you think it's good?
Yeah.
I mean, for the subject matter of the record, which, let's be honest, is ferociously dark. No one has ever written a record about, like, fucking pedophilia and child abuse. I mean, it's dark as fuck. I remember reading it when I was 15, the lyrics going, 14 to 15, going like I remember me and my uncle, for some reason, I was staying in my grandmother's house and I had a piece of paper out and I wrote down all of the words I didn't understand from Darkness Descends, Devote, Archaic. And I wrote them all out and looked them up in a dictionary. And he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm looking at all the words I don't understand on this band's lyrics. And he was looking at this record and he was like, I remember his face like, Jesus Christ. But it's dark subject matter, you know, and that's maybe the thing that also, you know, appealed to me. No One Answers, Never to Rise Again. Yeah, I mean, there's class songs on this. Death of Innocence.
Yeah, there are some goodies. For sure. I think that, like, I don't know, like, maybe they're going to prove us all wrong, but I kind of think they probably overcooked this union thing. Like, it's if you leave it for so long, people end up having expectations that can never really be filled. Like, you know.
Yeah, I mean, what happens, I think, maybe is that old bands reform, and then everyone is excited to see them. Then they go, well, you're going to make something new, and the making something new is just a precursor to go around the play different festivals, which is okay. It can work in the case of these guys. In the case of At War, who I think made the best return record.
It is very good.
Yeah, it's incredible, I reckon. But Dark Angel it's on another level. But I mean, you didn't.
Well, like, Dark Angel did a tour in Australia and stuff, you know. Like, At War couldn't even do a tour, and like, they can play in their hometown or play at Keep It True or play at Hamburg or whatever. But I don't think even you correct me if I'm wrong here, but I don't think since even getting back together they've done more than a couple of shows in a row, have they? Or
no, but
the South American tour or Japan.
I mean, let's put that into context. The Dark Angel tour of Australia is still only 3 days or 4 days. I mean, Dark Angel have only done weekends. They haven't done a tour. I mean, that's the ultimate test of these old bands. I mean, it's one thing to travel and play and make every gig a Saturday night, but are you going to be able to pull more than 60 on a Tuesday in Mannheim or something like this? I'm not convinced of that, and therefore
probably not.
Therefore, the 14 grand festival fee, it's not really worth it to reduce that.
No, but like, if you're in any of these new Renaissance bands or At War or anyone,
which one would you be in? Could you see yourself as the bass player of Savage Grace?
Yeah, dressed up as a pirate or whatever. Like, and I think that, like, he used to play his bass upside down and stuff as well to be trying and be cool. But I don't think that any of those bands, would you say it's a good idea for them to try and, you know, let's say give up whatever steady job you have in your 60s, you know, to try and bring the band back to life, you know? Probably not.
You know, I mean, I remember having that discussion with a lad at a festival. We're standing, I think, at Musco Rock, and we're at the record stall. And I was wearing this T-shirt, and he was like, spitting blood. He was like, "Oh, this fucking band comes back to make money, blah, blah, blah." And they're like, hang on. You think,
war?
Yeah. And he was like, I was there going, what world are you living in? Do you think At War is coming back to make money? Get the fuck out of here. Come on, man. Really? They come back when the pressure is off after, you know, 15, 20 years. Have a go at a crack pipe. And they're, you know, of course we know Paul and stuff. They're getting a third lease of life to have a bit of fun.
Yep.
Play the odd gig in the, you know, in their 50s or whatever. And
yep.
There's no fucking money in that. And he just like, he felt like, well, out there, do you think like Martin Missy's Protector are like rolling in the dollars and Living Death, or I don't know, whoever are like creaming like fucking 10 grand a show? Come on, what are you talking about? These people are playing because, you know, maybe why the itch doesn't go away, you know?
It's their version of golf, you know? And as you said, I don't think that any of those dudes are like, if I had to assume, and like, I don't know Paul well enough to assume, but I would say that his car is much more important than gigging. You know, he likes fixing up old cars. I'm sure if you said, do you want to go and hunt stuff, or, you know, fix up a Camaro, he'd be like, yeah, let's do that, and we'll worry about that war later, you know?
Well, I like to think they're equally important, but I take your point. Hang on, I have to pause this for a second. Recording in progress. Yes. Your Philly, can we call him our Philly? We're out driving down from down to Dublin that time, and Philly looks at me and he goes, and he's like, our Joe is a fucking veritable encyclopedia of heavy metal knowledge, blah blah blah. And I was like, looked at him like, yes.
Really?
And then he looks at me and he was playing like Venga Boys or something off his iPod, and he goes, aye, but I was listening to your Metal Salvage thing, and reckon it's sort of like, you know, what do they call it? Immovable object meets irresistible force, or something like this, where you get this like clash of nerd attention to details.
Nerdiness.
I mean, who else is talking about Brett Erickson leaving Viking to join Dark Angel, or the tinge of, you know, think about this. We could have learned languages in this time, and instead we filled our heads with heavy metal effluvia.
The weird thing is, it used to be so important to know all that kind of stuff before the internet, you know? And like, I remember whenever I was extremely young, meeting somebody at the local chip shop to learn the names of the members of Metallica, because I only had like, you know, tapes or whatever like that I'd copied, and like I didn't have any of that information at all. It was very important to know, you know? I
used to have this book, right? I used to have this this book where every record I bought, I would try and recreate a drawing of the cover and write out all the band's names and all the logos and everything. And every page was like me trying to redraw the cover of, I don't know, Darkness Descends or whatever else, you know, Exuma Rising from the Sea. And I wish I had that now. It was like from 1985, 6 to like 1988 or something, like trying to draw the guy from Leprosy and all that kind of stuff. And I would, you know those days you would the record, you would sit and look at, what is it, Kirk Hammett's Dirty Sock Foot on the back of Ride the Lightning, and just read the liner notes over and over. It is Kirk Hammett with the dirty sock, isn't it?
Sure is indeed, and his wee pants.
Yeah. And so you would just read the same things over and over and over again.
It certainly, you know, I think that's definitely the advantage of having something like a Metal Archives, that you can just go and find this kind of information out immediately, you know. But the thing that I find is missing from all that is, like, see, liner notes and thanks lists.
Yeah.
If you used to find out who toured with Exodus around Pleasures of the Flesh, you go and find out other bands to get into. Like, that's how I got into Laz Rocket and that sort of stuff, you know.
I remember sitting with Lee Dorian, who is a very sweet man, and we were sitting in a hotel room at Roadburn, and I remember saying to him, like, man, the thanks list of Forest of Equilibrium, 90, I mean, I was into tape trading, but it was very hard to tape trade Doom. It just wasn't on people's lists. And him opening the door to like finding Penance and all of these great Doom bands, because it was all in the thanks list. And you went, and then there was a magazine called Under the Oak, done by Griff who played the bass in Forest of Equilibrium. And I bought that because of that, and then being able to then find, of course, Count Raven, and being like, you were sort of introduced to the doom scene via a thanks list, because one guy went, let's put everything on the thanks list.
And it made total sense, especially, like, as I said, for underground bands and stuff. If you were into, again, like something as like sort of basic as UK thrash bands, checking out those albums, you could see the other bands that were on the list. Now, fair enough, you probably knew who Onslaught and etc. were, but if you wanted to know, like, about bands like Reanimator or whoever, that's frequently where you would find those names. And like, they were always in capital letters, so you'd be looking through the thanks list to see all the other bands they knew. Oh wow, cool, Nuclear Assault are friends with Dave Mustaine or whatever,
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what it was. And like Holy Terror as well, picking up that because of Holy Terror was the first time I went, oh, XL, maybe I should listen to Split Image, or maybe I'm thinking about that wrong. But
I would say a huge one though for metal would be on the back, or on the inside, or I can't remember if it was on the back of Kill 'Em All. It says, thanks to Exodus and Trauma for supplying the New Rangers. Now, the thing is, Exodus had an album that, like a year or two later in 1985 that people could go and check out. Whereas I think as much, I don't think I ever heard Trauma at all until, you could listen to their album on YouTube.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's what you did. You sort of, I mean, because you had the space and the time and whatever, you trolled through all the thanks lists looking for all of those kind of things. And that was the first time I saw the name like Hyrax or something, and then trying to track down Hyrax, and then finding a copy of what's the fucking name of Hyrax album? Pray for Power and all that.
The one from 1985. What's it called?
The egg with the egg on the front. The egg, the cracking egg.
He looks exactly like the guy on the front of Terror Squad by Artillery. What is it called again? It's not Terror and Submission.
No. It's called
not Violence and Force. Power and I don't know, whatever it is.
Power and Pray for Power. I remember that I had the demo. Fuck, I can't remember. Sorry, Kate.
Right. People will comment below if they're big into Hyrax, although I've never met anyone who's been a huge Hyrax fan.
I met Kate, and he was cool as fuck actually once.
Lovely guy.
Yeah,
nice guy.
Yeah,
he came to our gigs when we were out there. And he looks unbelievably stage ready at all times, doesn't he? Like, he's like,
and live.
Where do you get one of those leather jackets with the white lapels? Fair enough. Like,
and live, I remember seeing them in some bar to about 50, 60 people. I don't know where it was. It's a long time ago. And they just slaughtered the place. Just slaughtered it. You were just left going, oh, wow, that was just a bitch slap of heavy metal that just fucking happened right there.
It's weird the way some bands like them, like, they've been reunited. Man, I remember downloading their songs on LimeWire in 2003 from their reunions. So like, they've been,
there you go, yeah,
like a long time, It's funny how someone like, I think that like, if anything, Death Angel kind of moved up a little bit, from their reunion to now. They're probably more popular now than they ever were in the 80s,
But some of those, I mean, I love the Ultraviolence, and then in fact that was going to be one of my conversation points, a copy of the Ultraviolence. I loved it, and I still love it. Thrashers and fucking, I mean, it's just a brilliant record. I never really understood the second one, and then when I saw them live after they reformed, and I went to listen to one of the records, I was like super impressed. This is top notch modern thrash. Wasn't really my thing, but you couldn't deny that they were powerful, and the live show was killer. If you were, let's say, a Testament or Exodus fan who didn't know who they were and they were supporting, you'd go and buy a fucking shirt and a CD. You'd be like, this is brilliant. Like, you know what I mean?
I saw them doing the reunion show with Nuclear Assault and Testament in 2003, whenever Chuck Billy had like the dreadlock wig on and stuff.
2003. Wow, yeah, okay.
They totally annihilated Nuclear Assault and Testament. They just, and like Marduk were on that bill, and like Propane and a whole bunch of bands. It was like
Marduk,
the bottom of the bill were like bands who were like kind of killing it, and then the top bands, Nuclear Assault and Testament, both came out and just kind of like basically fucked up.
When John Connolly, I saw a show, or when John Connolly, I think he has asthma, right?
Yeah.
And I think he was having big problems breathing, and he was also drunk. And the show seemed to be a fucking mess. Like just a.
Was that the one that was the one that I'm talking about in the London Astoria, and like he did a whole speech about the Iraq War and all that sort of shit. And
I'm not sure. No, my show I saw was in Germany, and I hadn't made friends with Lilko yet, so I hadn't really got any into it. I think maybe I was there with Marduk. I'm not sure, hanging out, and then but Marduk were just on early, destroyed, and then, as you say, Death Angel destroyed, and then it was. I think I saw the same tour actually, and then.
Yep. No Mercy Festival.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, No Mercy. Yeah. And then at the end, Testament seemed, I don't know. I mean, I've seen awful Testament shows and really good Testament shows.
That was one of the ones where it was kind of like Steve Smith was playing guitar. I don't even know if fucking Eric Peterson was there. And like, I don't know, John Tete playing drums. Like, it was one of those lineups where you're just like, this is shit. Like, we left before Testament finished. We were just like, man, I can't be into this. I remember running into Dan Liker during the day and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And giving him our demo and stuff. He was actually pretty sound about it, like when we were 15, like, you know.
Lilker's fucking awesome. I mean, look, I just did the fucking YouTube with him, and I mean, you know, we randomly, I have a memory of way back in the mid-90s, somehow sending him a copy of Imrama, the first Primordial. I don't know if that's true. Sorry, Dan. But it's in my head that I sent him a copy of it because there was some correspondence of letter writing or something to do. I don't have a fucking clue. Maybe I'm mixing that with somebody. But then we made sort of mates with him and everything. And yeah, he's one of those like sort of dudes who's been there since year zero, who just has a great attitude to, as you say, meeting out and hanging out with like
hunters or fans or whatever. He's generally pretty. Like, I remember sneaking backstage at the Ambassador to give Scott Ian our demo. And he said, we could always use more coasters for the tour bus.
Okay.
Which is exactly the sort of thing that we do nowadays. When someone's like a CD, you're like, oh, brilliant. Thanks.
I actually did. I facilitated. But one time Scott Ian was here to do his spoken word. And he got to DJ in Brussels afterwards. We organized a buddy into DJ and loads of people showed up. And, you know, maybe he gets unfairly a bad rep, but he was pretty cool. He was pretty friendly, and we hung out and talked about Lizzie and Maiden and had a few beers, and he was all right. That's the end of that.
Seems like one of those dudes that, like, kind of Sebastian Bach, that if you're willing to have a conversation about your like fucking Kiss Army membership number, then great. Like, you know, let's talk about that for an hour.
Hang on, let me press pause for a minute. And you know me, the rock and roll never ends. You're never going to know what we talked about in that little tiny pause. I have some other conversation pieces here that won't look so amazing if you're going to listen to the eventual podcast. But I want to know what's your initial feeling?
What that is.
What's your initial feeling when you see this cover?
Oh, Breaker, great.
I mean, that could be the Best Accept album, maybe. But like, what the fuck?
She's really surprised by the rock. Well, I don't know if it's rock that's surprising her. The barbed wire.
Well, the barbed wire is going in her ears, right? And I mean, it's not a sexual cover. It's more like, oh, I am surprised by the rock. So
it's like, you know, there's something about German bands around this time. The class of ladies that they were looking for were not leather maidens.
No.
Like Scorpions and these guys, it was always like those women that were on Tennent's cans. These women in like blue gowns or whatever, you know.
The Tennent's cans, yeah, I totally remember that. I remember being down on the beach near where I grew up as a kid, and yeah, you'd find those Tennent's cans when you were like 11, 12 years old, and you'd be like to your mates, look at this, there's a woman on the Tennent's can. Like, I mean, okay, look, you've got this iconic picture of the two flying V's. Why isn't that the cover? Instead, you've got a surprised woman in a summer dress.
Is that the cover of the Best of Accept on the back, is it?
No. This is.
I thought it was the cover of something, the burning flying V's, no?
It is also. No, this isn't. They aren't burning. They're just standing.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. Right. Grand. There's just
I do know what you mean with the burning ones. This is like the photo before. Like, why is that not the cover? Who decides that? Like, who signs off on that in? And also the one, but is it the first album has a woman in with a hat with a chainsaw on, just on the street?
Yep. Also, it's one of those sort of graphic design quandaries as well, because like, why their logo is kind of small. You would think that it would be big and legible.
Yeah.
Breaker.
Yeah. I mean, and it also like to the untrained eye, it would seem that the little tiger in their logo is sort of, it is a little kind of, I'm not going to put my.
Someone took a photo of a metal badge, and then we're like, okay, that'll do. But what do you call it on that album? I
mean, this is
Love Child, isn't it? And some other rockers. This
is a brilliant record. I mean, it has Starlight, Breaker. It has got Midnight Highway, which is one of my favorite Accept songs. It's got Burning, Breaking Up Again, and also, do you know, like, there's a few Accept ballads where Wolf Hoffman sings.
I didn't know that.
Udo doesn't. If I'm not not on this record, but if I'm not Breaking Up Again, is that Wolf or is that Udo? I think that might be Wolf Hoffman, has a kind of cleaner voice. Now, all the Accept minions are gonna fucking slaughter me if that's not true. But I was just looking through for conversation points, and I just thought, like, Gama Bomb have some contentious art. Would you in the Philly? Would you roll with this?
Yeah, of course. How could you? Like, it's a killer album cover. Come on, it's amazing. They've had some fantastic album covers up to Russian Roulette. They're all
Russian Roulette. That's a brilliant album cover, though. Russian Roulette. In fairness,
like, obviously Riot, or we can't talk about album covers without talking about Riot.
Well, can I just
which one? Like, there's just so many fucking toppers.
Well, I will say this, okay, before, while we're on the case, this is Born in America, right? Which is the first appearance of that.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and that kills your career forever. Like, who do you like? How is that? It's like a sumo.
I would say the opposite. That got them onto the Donington Festival. Like, they were.
Come on, hang on, shut the fuck up. A chubby sumo seal with like a little axe in his underpants. Do you think? I mean, what? Who goes? Yeah, I want that on my baseball shirt in 1981 to show off my.
Hard. Like obviously Mark Reale, it was his band, but he must have that album cover. Like US flag, 2 seal warriors, and
I'm gonna look at the back cover to see who fucking made that. Actually,
I would not be surprised if the name was Joey Reale or whatever his brother. Like, my brother makes all our like our design, so maybe it's nepotism.
Hang on now. Cover concept: Steve Loch. Art direction. I mean, because it needed art direction. JJ Gordon. And there's something else I can't see because it's too small.
Shocking.
But it doesn't say who drew the chubby seal with the axe.
No, but I think these are all elements. They had like a laminate of the Riot logo and an American flag, and they just got that seal from a T-shirt.
But then
it's not their most insane one. They have an album called Nightbreaker with a picture of a shark on the front.
Yeah, which has like 6 different covers for whoever is reissuing it. Yeah. But like, who decides that, like, we're going to roll with that? Because Narita Far Down Under is just obviously like the kind of the portrait picture of the seal with the boy's shoulders, right? Then you've got Narita where he's standing there and there's like what appears to be an atomic explosion. I mean, I suppose I should go and find them, could I? Hang on. You talk amongst yourselves.
Talk amongst yourself. I boxed up this can of Guinness, guys. I'm going to try and save the day.
I mean, it's just like, okay, we have, I just grabbed these ones. Rock City, like, there's a city of rock which appears to be exploding in the background. And our hero has an axe and a seal's face. But I mean, he's wearing a sort of onesie here, which is unusual. Whereas on Narita, looks like he's been out in the sun for quite a long time. There is the fighter playing in the background.
Yeah. It's not that, man. Like, it's the album is named after the airport in Tokyo, Narita, and that's why the plane's there. But it makes you think, like, is this what the airport is supposed to look like? Or
but look at I mean, he's been on a spree of
he's killed before, yeah.
But like,
and is that a burning building then beside the plane? Is it?
Yep. Well, no, there is Mount Fuji in the background, and
what's that beside it?
There's like a column, a burning column. It doesn't appear to be a building. And then there's many skulls. I mean, he's killed at least 30 times. And then, but it's look at the self-satisfied grin on his face. Like, do you know what I mean?
The thing that I find impressive is that until their recent albums, he's never been illustrated. Like, they never tried vaguely to, like, it's always just been, here's a man and we're going to superimpose this head on it.
A seal man, please. Yeah, and also, unlike their contemporaries from that area of New York.
Is he a sumo warrior, actually? Is he a sumo wrestler in that?
Yeah, he's a sumo wrestler. That's the point, man. It's Narita, come on. But he's got a little axe. But no, actually, it's quite big here. But he's really like he's not very toned. Like, you think about Manowar, that eagle is fucking muscular, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But this is like a sort of untoned sumo wrestler.
Do you think is the seal the guy who becomes the tank?
Oh,
for the cover of Thundersteel, or is that just an unrelated piece of poor artwork? Look,
well, that's
we've got kind of sidetracked here into a Riot album cover discussion, haven't we?
I thought about this. I should have thought about this before. Let's just examine the cover of Thundersteel then, which is maybe the greatest power metal album of all time. Let us just say that. But I mean, I don't see. There's no seal here. Like, do you see a seal?
Maybe he's the seal. See the guy in the middle who's the tank.
But the thing about it is that the tank guy is like a centaur, right?
Yeah.
In the sense that he is coming out of the tank, and like he is the tank.
No, his legs have become a tank. Like, he got blown up in the war, and they replaced his legs with the tank.
Yeah, I mean, he's not in the tank; he is the tank.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Well, then what's she got to do with anything? What's she got to do with
I think she's attached to him. Does she not have a load of wires attaching herself to him, or is she his prisoner?
No, she doesn't.
Of the above.
She's independent of the centaur tank.
Maybe she just lives in the ruined city as well. Doesn't really look like a city either, does it? It looks really like the sort of the burbs nearly-ish, look, you know.
Well, that would be everything fell over. That would be kind of typical, wouldn't it? I mean, I'm not going to get out. Do you ever see the cover of the first Jag Panzer? The kind of woman with the eye patch and that.
Oh, yep, it's pretty happening.
Don't make me get that because I've been out of this.
Another great one's Attacker Battle at Helm's Deep has got like a kind of crazy prices style affair around the logo, doesn't it? Like, it's on special offer. Look,
something weird about that record, right? Attacker, is that that label were Canadian, and it's the same label as Pile Driver, the Metal Inquisition, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, and also, what is the Lords of the Crimson Alliance?
Yes, and they did all the fake albums as well, didn't they?
That's it. I remember reading an interview with the guy who made all the records in Iron Fist, which was the fanzine of, what's his name? I know him and I've forgotten it. Which was quite famous in the late 90s, 2000s. And there was a huge interview. And he said...
Iron Pages, was it?
No, I can't remember. But anyway, he basically said that this Canadian label were seeing how big metal was getting, and they sort of said to him, "Oh, you play the guitar, right?" And this girl in the office, I think maybe it was his girlfriend, I think, and they said,
they were all originally hired to do a Brock's Helm record, wasn't it? Something like that.
I think it was this, right? They were hired to go and make a heavy metal record, and they went and made the Metal Inquisition, and they bought Venom Black Metal and a whole bunch of records and just copied it. It's a drum machine on Metal Inquisition, you know.
Is it?
Yeah, it's the same with...
It definitely is on Lords of the Crimson Alliance as well.
Exactly, and Attack.
Exocet or Exorcist or whatever is definitely real drum.
Nightmare Theater, yeah, but that's Virgin Steel guys, right?
That's who it was. It was a Virgin Steel record that they were making, wasn't it?
Yeah, because Exorcist is David DeFice and fucking what's his name, the guitar player, Virgin Steel, Edward Persino. And they made that record, but I think the label just saw how big everything was getting, and they just told this guy, just get your guitar, and him and the girlfriend just went together, copied some lyrics, and just wrote Metal Inquisition in a weekend, and they went and recorded it, and then they decided, oh, it works doing this, so they made a kind of proggy metal good. Now maybe I'm wrong, and maybe you know the lead bass player of the Lords of the Crimson Alliance can be under the comments giving me hassle, but I think that's true. I think the label made a kind of career of making 5 or 6 kind of
just sort of cash in type records. But though I have to say, man, that Exorcist One Nightmare Theater I thought was great. Whenever I first checked it out, I thought it was like well, not as good as Victim or sorry, fucking what do you call him again? Who did Dead City and all that kind of stuff? The German band.
Well, Victim is Speed Revolution, right? And who's Dead City? Dead City, you mean Living Death or
no? What do you call it? And the singer was called Lemmy as well, and he was the bass player. What were they called again?
Necronomicon. Protect.
No. They're German thrash band.
Oh, Lemmy. Okay.
Violent Force.
Violent Force. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a Violent Force record there with a big red cover with a sort of. Yeah, they were okay. They were all right, you know.
Yeah, similar kind of vibes. That there was around this. Well, probably around after whatever that French label were making those fake records. There was a French label who did a few as well. It wasn't Black Dragon. It was like another label from France around then, and they did like a female thrash album and stuff like that. And it was like just really, it seemed like really incompetently put together and incompetently sort of sang and stuff. Can't remember what it's called.
Oh, was
Comments below, please.
A French band or?
Yeah, it was a French made-up female thrash band from 1990.
All right.
And like all the songs were like thrash, thrash,
wasn't like Ice Age or something. Oh, Ice Age is Swedish, isn't it?
Yeah, they were okay though.
Yeah, they were okay. Yeah. Because that's going to bug me now for fucking ages, but I know what you mean. There's so much of that though, that sort of 85 to 89, 90 sort of thrash that's just sort of like C division, I guess. You know, we had me and Tommy from Saturnalia Temple were having this thrash metal quiz, and I managed to get, remember the band Midas Touch for Swedish thrash on Noise Records? That was like his hardest question on his quiz. Tommy, I won your quiz. And he was just like, which Swedish band? Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, got to be Midas Touch. Because there wasn't much Scandinavian thrash, was there? That they didn't really do thrash.
Not really. People used to talk about like sort of Gotham City in the same kind of way that you would talk about, you know, Savage Grace or whatever. But I always thought they were much more kind of traditional sounding band, you know.
Yeah.
There is a thrash band from up there from Finland or whatever from like 89 or 90. Good album.
Oh, well,
we're the worst people for this because me and you have both been drinking and I've been smoking weed. So how are we going to possibly remember the names of like a bunch of stuff?
In Finland, is it Baron Cross or something? Rippikoulu. Baron Cross sounds like an American Christian heavy metal band. Hang on, I need to pee again.
Of horrendous albums.
Recording in progress. Well, I just picked out a bunch of things that I thought would be. What's your feelings on this? How much love do you have for this record? I think it's one of the greatest fucking 80s hard rock records that there is. And what a cover as well.
It's an amazing cover. Like, I think that's what, like, one of its greatest assets is, like, I think that they've always had really, well, not always, like up until the 90s, they had really, really cool album covers and really cool design.
For anybody,
but, like, musically, I think like, obviously
this is Def Leppard Pyromania, which I think is a fucking absolutely amazing record. I mean,
it's definitely a game changer, and like I think a lot of people are unaware of how successful a record it was. You know,
like, I mean, I love the two previous. No, I mean, it sold nearly 20 million copies. I think in the end, 15, 16 million or something. But I mean, I love the record. I love High and Dry as well. But Pyromania, I mean, Die Hard, The Hunter, Foolin'. I mean, it's just such a good hard rock record that I don't hear anybody really talk about anymore.
There's very, very few bands or from England who had that level of success in America in the 80s, like
none.
Tears for Fears, maybe Duran Duran, you know, even like bands like the Smiths, even U2 and stuff. Like, fair enough, Joshua Tree was an absolute massive success, but like that album came out in 1983, you know, and that was like at a level when a massive success in heavy metal was something like Quiet Riot or, you know, Rat, where they were able to sell like 2 or 3 million copies of a record in America, and like that was a huge thing, get to number one. That album, as you said, sold 10 million copies off the bat. Well,
it's a good point that you make about Quiet Riot, because I think most people don't really understand or realize is that, I mean, if you look at Black Sabbath's album sales, there's 2, 3, 4 million copies, but there's no 10 million banger. Not by the early 80s. I mean, Ozzy is doing probably 1 million or something, whatever. But Quiet Riot is, oddly enough, Metal Health is the album that just blows open the doors. I mean, it replaces what? Thriller? at #1 in the album charts in '83. And like Quiet Riot, Mental Health is, I should have fucking grabbed that, but that's the first huge heavy metal record in a way. It's so bizarre. And it just like opened the gates. And then Def Leppard, you get Photograph, then I think was a huge single. Shortly after that, MTV was playing it on rotation. But people don't realize the place that, you know, a quite deeply average band, Quiet Riot, plays in the sort of opening of the gates to heavy metal. I mean, they were selling more than
like
Priest or, you know.
That's what left, like Rat at the same period having a massive success, and Ozzy, as you said, albums and stuff going on to sell like 3 million copies. Like, and if you look at what directly followed on from that, it's band like Wasp bringing out their first album, and Armored Saint bringing out their first EP and first album on Chrysalis, you know, and those bands got signed to major labels directly because of what had happened the previous eight or 9 months, you know.
Yeah, I mean, there's tons of bands who, you mean, I think Armored Saint is probably in a way a bad example, but I would say, you know, your Sabotages and your
yeah, but Sabotage, their first album didn't come out on a major label. Like,
no,
Armored Saint were signed from off the street onto a bigger deal than Dokken got originally when they signed, you know.
Yeah, I mean, and it's the Quiet Riot that opened the door to all of that. Yeah, that Sunset Strip hard rock. And it's quite amazing.
And again, that's like the reason why at that stage America was in a position where a band like the Scorpions, or, you know, with Blackout, or Maiden with Peace of Mind, could go from having probably never played headline shows, just going out there supporting someone like Ozzy, to doing their own arena shows in 1983, which is insane. I mean, like, you know.
The Scorpions is I think Scorpions is interesting because they're one of the few bands that booked the trend. As I understand it, I remember doing this Wikipedia search before, and Scorpions have sold over 100 million records compared to Black Sabbath's 65 or 70 million records. And they have those huge albums in 80, 81, 82, 83, which in the USA sold 1, 2, 3 million copies. I mean, but if you look at the biggest selling album of Judas Priest, I mean, it's Defenders of the Faith, Scream for Vengeance era, but still in the States, it's only 2 million copies or something, which is a lot. But then you look at that Quiet Riot album, I think it sold like 8 million copies in the United States. Like, it's the one that just opened the floodgates for hard rock almost. And it's very, okay, you had Van Halen before, I guess, but, you know, for heavy metal, it's
the thing about that though is that, like, that also was the birth of metal bands in the 80s thinking that cover songs were the answer to all their problems, you know, because they had such a big, massive success with Come On, Feel the Noise and stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think they ended up doing another Slade song a couple of years later.
Yeah. And also, like, being closer to home, you look at our own Mama's Boys tried to do the same thing and release a Slade cover, thinking, oh, that's what you do to get a fucking...
There's some great stuff though. Like, I think that if they had more of a grassroots following in Ireland, you know, and they did have an okay one for a time, but, you know, they just weren't able to transition over to England. And
Mama's Boys, well, I don't know. I mean,
Power and Passion's great record, you know, and like they've loads of songs from around that era, like Gentleman Rogues, that it really is kind of, imagine if Van Halen were from fucking Fermanagh, hey, you know.
Yeah, I mean, they did have some great songs. Yeah, Power and Passion is a class song, and that footage of them playing at ECT is one of the best moments of Mama's Boys, because it's like, it's proper rock. It's before, obviously, producers got their hands on them and went perp, 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 perp underneath all the bass.
Which they certainly did. After Needle in the Groove, it just it became something different. But funny, like, it's something that we always talk about, apart from Lizzie, you know, Irish bands really. And it was like, really, I suppose, like Mama's Boys, not really metal, but like pretty heavy. And then like someone like Clover or whatever, like there was some attempts, Your Cousin's Dad's Band and stuff like that, the Radiators, like.
Yeah. Actually,
again, that was Dublin's problem, wasn't it? It was, everything was tried to get too new wave. Whenever the Undertones stopped playing punk and started trying to do new wave, everyone was like, "Oh fuck, better get a haircut."
You think that's what the problem is? I find it fascinating because when I look back on, you know, people make excuses for why Ireland is lacking so many bands in the early, let's say particularly 80 to 86. Like, and you know, you can look at most European countries and go, okay, here's your, I don't know, your Hungarian version of this, that, and the other, and here's what all these other things. We just seem to be, we're beside the country that's pumping out all this music. But like, there's no Irish Venom, there's no Irish Black Flag, there's no Irish Joy Division, there's no Irish The Smiths, even on a like a 4 rungs down. Like, I don't, like, when people ask me, come on, there must be some demo from 86 which is like da, 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 da. Like, even like, you know, studs and nails and fuck you and whatever. There must be something, even if it's crap, there must be something. And I go, I haven't found it. I don't think there is. I mean, that green metal compilation from 87 is bullshit. I mean, it's all, oh, Rocher Deva, oh, well, yeah, oh, like, what, like, where's all those bands and those feelings missing from Ireland in 81, 82? Where's
I think that there was probably a lot of good intentions around then.
Sure.
I think a big problem really was that, like, Ireland, for a lot of intents and purposes, in like the early 80s, was much closer to like a second world nation.
Sure,
you know?
but
like, there wasn't. It was.
But that's not an excuse though. But think about,
why did Spain not have tons? Like, now there are loads in Spain, but there's loads more people in Spain. So it's like the Irish didn't. There wasn't a load of studios in Ireland. Me and you, when we started making albums, had to go to England to make them. You know. So
well, I think you're giving the country a bit of a free pass in the sense that we had all the recipe. We have religious oppression, we have emigration, we have poverty, we have all the recipe for there to be an Irish discharge. And you don't need a huge studio to record Agit, anarcho-punk in 81, 82, 83. Now, okay, we got Paranoid Visions, but to my
but that's where you are. Like, in Northern Ireland, the punk scene, like, there was loads and loads of hardcore bands, and like, no, there was never any crossover bands until the 90s in, you know, in Ireland or whatever.
Well,
but
okay, let's pull it back to specifically like 80, 86. Like, Ireland seems to be mired in Tuanua, Something Happens, The Fountainhead, Scullion, just sort of awful acoustic sort of like trad rock. Like, I don't hear any fuck you. I don't see any Satan. I don't see any rebellious kind of, like, it's all as if it's all so piecemeal. It's all so meh. I mean, maybe I'm being, well, no, I don't think I'm being, you know, sort of disrespectful to the age or something like this, because I've done.
There wasn't a precedent. There was no precedent of that, you know.
Well, no, hang on.
What I'm saying is, like, there wasn't a precedent of bands of that nature, you know, or even like any sort of like occult literature or whatever in the 20th century.
But that's not what I mean, Joe. I mean, like, there was no precedent for Black Flag in 81, or no precedent. I mean, things have to form out of other things other than precedents, and that's what sort of virgin territory means, I think. And so, where is the anarcho D-beat punk band from Ireland in 81 who are raging against poverty, religious oppression? Where is the Irish, an Irish band in 86 who are just like, you're just trying? Instead, I can't find it. I mean, I can find some thrash bands and a few things. It's just fascinating to me, like, where, okay, the Virgin Prunes is an example of a genuine post-punk sort of our answer to some of those bands. You know, I mean,
I think like a big thing that you're not talking about here as well is like the Holyhead Ferry. Like, a lot of people went to London to succeed, and a lot of bands, like, that was what the first thing they did.
Yeah, I agree with you. Look at My Bloody Valentine, or look at whatever. I mean, I get that, but there still should be some people left over for 1 or 2 or 3, or there must be somebody left over for something, you know. And it's weird. Like, I found this weird channel a few years ago, which was like Irish rock bands from 84 to 85, and they're kind of homemade videos and stuff. And it was all just bands trying to be sort of like Bon Jovi, sort of like Def Leppard. I didn't see any, you know, sort of fuck you-ness. And that sort of really fascinates me. Why is that missing from our sort of early musical vernacular or something? Why do you think? What do you think? Sorry, that's about a little question, but you know.
Yeah, it's like the million questions in one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, you know, Ireland in the 80s, as I said, like, it wasn't like, a lot of people's main concern was fucking getting a job or eating, or, you know, the troubles were going on the north, you know.
Yeah.
And immigration was absolutely massive. So
a
lot of young people, like, fair enough, there was a lot of disassociated people hanging about, and there are lots of punk bands and stuff from Dublin and stuff, but I think what you mean is like an aggressive band like Discharge, whose music was like
reflected the times. I mean, like, look at
cutting edge. You know, I don't think that Ireland particularly had anything cutting edge, terms of
a good example is like
or hard stuff. You know,
take for example Vader in Poland. They're under a communist regime. 85, they're starting. Vader's demo in 86 is fucking lightning in a bottle. It's ferocious. And it's
Yep.
so angry against what was happening in their state. It's amazing. Those early Vader demos would blow your fucking head off. And there's Tormentor in Hungary. All across the Eastern Bloc, people are making instruments behind the Iron Curtain to try and do something. And we are able to walk into a guitar shop and buy something. Okay, we're poor. I get it. People are emigrating. Yeah. But like, I mean, when I was growing up as a thrasher, 87, 88, 89, the lads that I knew just seemed to be more interested in sitting around on the beach drinking tins of Tennent's than sort of trying to do a band. And when they did a band, it would never had any focus or drive or sort of, this is what we are. It was always like a piecemeal of different people. And it lacked, I don't know, some urgency or something. Does that make any sense?
Well, I would also say, man, that, you know, you're singling out like, you know, aggressive, you know, cutting edge, you know, political music.
Well,
right? And like, fair enough, Ireland didn't have a lot of that at that time, but it also had a lot of like different genres of music that were very cutting edge and stuff through the 70s and 80s and stuff, you know?
Okay, well, all right. I mean, okay, so underground music, 70s and 80s, okay, we can talk about Van Morrison and Lizzie and all that kind of stuff. But like underground music, people doing it for themselves, it just seems to me that in the early to mid 80s, it all seems to be very polite in Ireland. I don't really understand that, you know?
Well, if you watch something like Reeling in the Years or even all those late show comps, all the bands who were on them were all some version of Larry Mullen. You know, they all had, you know, they looked like Larry Mullen, and, you know, they were trying to have some sort of,
well, the best one to watch is
jaunty success is what you would describe it as.
The best one to watch is that Self-Aid, you know, the Irish version of Live Aid. If you ever want like an insight into what Ireland is in 1986, is watch Self-Aid and watch what we put on TV to try and solve Irish joblessness. And it's like I don't know, Albania. It's like Albania in like 83 or something. It gets so unprepared.
I think that's probably the way you need to look at it in terms of like, you know,
sure,
you can be rich in culture and rich in like, you know, ideas, but also incredibly awful at bringing them across.
I agree,
that's why Ireland didn't really have a film industry, you know, at that stage, you know.
But at the same time, you can find Eastern Bloc like fucking speed metal and D-beat punk and stuff. I mean, you can find Parabellum in Colombia in 83, which is like almost war metal. It just seems like there's an incredible lack of anger. I don't know.
Yeah, I would agree with that, man, you know. But it doesn't mean people weren't angry, you know. It just means that was the lay of the land at the time. Look at these studs, man.
Who's your favorite member? If you had,
there's certain members you can't have as favorite members anymore, man. Well, do you think anyone's favorite member was Carl Loggins ever? Like,
he's not in this picture.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, I'm asking that question.
I'm not sure. My question to you is, right, if you could morph into being one of them in 1984, who would you go for? Like, just for let's say for a day, then let's say for a year. Who do you want?
Joey DeMaio has got a glass eye, so I'm gonna put him out of the running because I like having, like, you know, stereo.
Because you couldn't work your sexton.
Couldn't work my sexton. I like my bass to have a normal neck on it and a load of other regulations. So let's throw him out of the. Scott Columbus has got a killer tash and he's got a killer, you know, he just looks great all around. He's dead. So let's take him out of the run as well.
He's got a power stance. I'm telling you this. If I was to back one of them to fucking kick the other's ass, Scott Columbus he'll kick your ass. I mean, look at his power stance. Do you know what I mean?
It's fantastic. But I'm gonna put it between Eric Adams and himself, the guitar player.
Ross the Boss. Ross the Boss.
Like, Ross the Boss looks like a very unassuming person to be. But if you look at how absolutely mental the other three people are, it might be best to be Ross the Boss in this scenario, you know?
Do you think so? Yeah. I mean,
Eric Adams has got eagle killing skills, doesn't he? He's got like, he's got sick bow skills, as they say. Like,
but did he have them then? That's the point.
I don't know. I know that, like, I know Joey DeMaio lived in his mum's basement for a long time.
That's not true.
What it currently used to be my mum's basement, but it's now my basement.
That's not true. Come on. Look at Ross has some sort of weird, indescribable fur over his shoulder, which I find really interesting.
Yep.
And also, like, he's wearing like long pants.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're Eric,
no, is Scott, I think Scott Columbus is wearing long pants as well, isn't he?
true enough.
This is how much we've studied this. I can only see it vaguely, but I have a pretty good. If I go over to my record collection, it's in there somewhere.
Listen, if you're gonna any of them in a rumble, it's Scott Columbus. Scott Columbus is the alpha male, actually, in this fucking photo. But
see, on the back of that record, does it say thanks to all the chicks who came along for the ride or anything like that?
What is this? Can I just ask you, what is that?
That's his falconry glove.
But
telling you about his
fucking... It's too furry for a falconry glove.
Well, maybe it's some sort of you've heard of the idea of a...
Are you going to get your falconry glove from down there?
No, you've heard of the idea of a studded mace. Well, that's the exact opposite. It's a really furry glove, like, from Monty Python and the comfy chair.
Can I just... Hey, how come we never called up a band together, Studded Mace?
Swing the Studded Mace is a tune by, what do you call those dudes?
This is not the record you think it is. This is the bootleg of the live Manowar record from '85, signed by everyone to a guy called Stan.
Stan.
Well, I've told this story in my Manowar vinyl thing, my guide to Manowar, but I'll tell it again. In that,
I wouldn't be surprised if that used to belong to Stan from Zentrix, because he's a massive Manowar fan. So
well, definitely, and if he was a fat, sad Dutch guy,
wouldn't have sold it.
No. Hang on, I need to get another beer. 1 second. So, do you want to hear my stupid Manowar story? I mean,
yes, please.
People who've watched people who are, returning subscribers to the YouTube channel. The point is that about 21 years ago, Primordial signed to this label, Hammerheart Records in Holland, 98, even 99. And me and Kieran went over to visit those guys. And I got talking to this strange dude in a record store, and my German was bad and his English was shit. And what I understood was he had lots and lots of Manowar records for sale. That being one of them, like 20 odd, all signed from 81 to 85. Old bootlegs, old 12 inches, old picture discs, crazy stuff. And I said, okay, in my German, ich verstehe, how much money do you want, etc. And I had maybe 70 or 80 euro equivalent. And I didn't realize he wanted that for every single record. So we met this guy in Aachen at a truck stop, me and Kieran, and we went out. And Kieran, and he was like, blah, blah, blah. And I took out my money and he's like, what the fuck is this? How much money you have? It's like nothing. And Kieran was like, oh, and Kieran gave me like an extra 50 euro. And I was like, oh, this is all the money I have. Just give me 2 records. And he just this old dude, this Stan, he was just like this broken down, like, oh, fuck's sake. Sorry, Stan. Sorry, Stan, if you're watching. He's just a lad. Sorry, Stan, if you're watching. But he was very unhappy with his lot in life. It was my impression. And he was just like, oh, blah, 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 in German. I said, I don't really understand. Just give me 2 records. And he just put all of them on the table. And he just goes, take the records. For me, it's over. And he just took my 120 euro and just left. Nice. And I got like 23 signed Manowar records from 80 to like 86, 81 to 86.
You know what the thing is? Like, Manowar are such fucking swizzes. Like, they'd be charging their fans serious bucks,
Listen, if I went to the Manowar,
probably fucking remortgaged his house. He probably spent thousands on Manowar and was all like, you know what?
But this is like early 80s.
Done. I'm finished.
This is like early 80s, and he was their mate. He told me to Stan. That's him there. Admittedly, it looks like Alan, so I passed off his mom. But no, I mean, it's he was their mate, hanging around in Europe with them in the 83, 84, 85, or whatever. And he just gave me all these records, and then I said to a few Manowar fans, like, I have these records. And I sent a few pictures to some people who were doing that Magic Circle Fest. And there was like apoplexy among the recipients. And I thought, well, Stan, I got for 100 euro what I could have sold for a lot of money. Needless to say, it didn't. And that moment has passed. So,
Well, you know what? You'll probably be taking those Manowar albums to your grave.
It would appear so, and if that's
the 80s ones are good though. You can't really,
no. Don't get me wrong. I fucking love Manowar, of course, but that that was a conversation piece. I'm
gonna conversation piece you.
Okay, do it. Let's go. Oh, okay.
So let's hear it.
I saw Onslaught with Slammer and Crumbsuckers without, what's the singer's name in Crumbsuckers from Life of Dreams? From the second Crumbsuckers album, Beast on My Back. I saw them in Top Hat Dunleary in 90 maybe, and it was really disappointing because it was not the original Crumbsucker singer. And Onslaught were in their sort of shorts and
American baseball shirts, yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't like it. I don't know. Like, is that album worth returning to?
Well, like it's certainly like one of the more polished versions of, you know, UK thrash. And the good thing about it certainly is like Steve Grimmett's performance. You know, he's really killer.
You can't really
and there's certainly like there's a gauge, isn't there? There's like Power from Hell, which is like, you know, extremely hardcore-ish and like, you know, venomish, and then the Force, and then this. So like there's like the wheel of how commercial they got, and this is definitely the most commercial record. I think if it was by another band, if it said Satan or Pariah on this, I think you would probably really like it.
Well, the problem for me is that there was Let There Be Rock before that, right?
That told you why if they had made a follow-up to the Force that tried to be evil, that involved Sky Keeler doing Let There Be Rock, it would have still been, you know, a disappointment for people who are fans of the Slayer worship on that record, you know.
Go on, play us a riff. No, Onslaught is a weird band, man.
Yeah, like definitely you can see if you're trying to please any of the crowds, people who really loved Power from Hell, you know, the punks,
would
probably not like the Force as much, you know. And I would say the same with like people who loved the Force would not like In Search of Sandy as much, you know. They weren't building their audience, they were diminishing their audience with every release, you know.
Tell me this, we all know that many thrash bands in 88 to 90, 91 tried to I think they saw, it's weird for me because 86 you get Rain and Blood clobbers everyone with violence and extremity and darkness or whatever you want to call it. But by 88, 89, everybody's trying to find a ballad, a cover. Like what happened in that 2 or 3 year period where thrash then, some of the B, C division thrash bands don't realize what side their bread is buttered and they go, let's change everything and wear shorts and just, as you say, and try and make a commercial success rather than sticking to their guns and being who they were. Strikes me as really weird because it's a really short period of time, you know.
I think it is a short period of time, but like as Anthrax always said, that they kind of always felt that like up until, you know, that period after Rain and Blood, you know, whenever if Metallica were to go and do their own headline shows, they'd be playing for 1,000 or 2,000 people, you know. It seemed like that it was a race that everybody had a good chance of kind of doing well in, you know. And I think by 88 or like certainly by mid to late 89, a lot of these bands kind of realized that Metallica were headlining arenas, you know. And like, although Anthrax did the Headbangers Ball tour and stuff like that, none of these bands were going to be able to go out there and play the same kind of numbers as Metallica, you know, by Justice for All. So.
No, but what was going on within the thrash psyche where they thought that there was a route out into that? That's what fascinates me, is that like the thrash
it has to be put down to totally like bad management, bad labels, bands thinking that cover songs were the answer to their problems, where they were going to do like a cover of an AC/DC song or like anything like that, and it was somehow going to, you know, give them that Quiet Riot boot up into some like doing, because I think In Search of Sandy probably did actually okay when it came out, but because it was a major label deal, same as the first Dokken record, it was looked at as being a total failure because it didn't sell more than, you know, 100,000 copies, you know.
But think about this. I mean, there's plenty of thrash fans we could discuss who went from, let's say, 87, 88, but by 88, 89, they were all trying to do a sort of a ballad, a sort of cover, trying to soften the edges. Whereas, you know, death metal never really did the same thing. Black metal didn't. But I mean, there's a weird thing among thrash metal by 89, 90, 91. It was trying to sort of get out of the gate, you know?
Yep.
I mean, with heavy metal, you've got Queensryche broke out. Then you've got Vicious Rumors.
Not many other bands could do that, you know? They had enough hair in them to be like Tesla and, you know, play for essentially women and like people who weren't fans of metal were getting into that kind of stuff, you know.
But think about, like, you've got Queensryche, then behind them you've got Backed Up, you've got Vicious Rumor, Sabotage, Crimson Glory, these kind of bands who are trying to break out into that 1-2 million sales. But it just seems so misguided to me that thrash bands didn't really understand what side their bread was buttered, and the scene moved so quickly, and by 90 it was just completely out of energy, completely out of wind, you know, or whatever you want to say.
Yeah, it certainly did lose the puff of itself very, very, very quickly, you know. And speaking of, this is like not too many bands bringing out their first album in 1988, you know, thrash bands, like, you know, apart from, can't even think who could compare to them. Like, they really, it's one of the best debut albums in my opinion, of like, you know.
It's hysterically good, isn't it? It's outrageous.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
I mean, Walking Through Glass, or Through Two Eyes of Glass, March into Fire.
That's the thing I could never understood, why people would even, like, I love some stuff by Death Angel, they're a cool band and stuff like that, but that album, you know, I think that album's better than any Testament album I've ever heard, you know.
Oh, absolutely. Hands down. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, very few things come close to, I mean, Forbidden Evil was what I was just...
I'd put it in the same category as Darkness Descends, as an album that you're like, holy shit, like, this is fucking really... It's like in terms of like being a really ferociously excellent thrash album, it's awesome.
Would you have Forbidden Evil or Eternal Nightmare?
Oh, Forbidden Evil every time. I don't think I think Eternal Nightmare is overrated, so I do.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, I don't think the musicianship is in the same level as Forbidden Evil. Forbidden Evil has like amazing, kind of amazingly melodic, brilliant priest type vocals and really progressive, cutting edge guitar playing, you know. Whereas I think the thing with like Violence is they're great, but if anything, I'd probably actually prefer Oppressing the Masses to the first one, just because.
What? Really?
Yeah, like the sound a wee bit too hardcore for me, you know. The sound a wee bit like the Chrome Eggs on Alpha and Omega, a wee bit too like. It's a lot of.
I'm not sure I can have that. I mean, I think the key to Eternal Nightmare is, I mean, it is the crazy singing, the Jello Biafra thrash metal singing, but the riffs are like Colin the Coroner and stuff. I mean, I would have Eternal Nightmare over Forbidden Evil.
Well, I would definitely have Eternal Nightmare over the Ultraviolence, but I would definitely.
Interesting.
Actually, I think I probably would say that as much as I totally love Forbidden Evil, I like Twisted into Form just as much.
I always had this argument with Paul from Arcane Sun, etc., Solstice, etc. He was a Twisted into Form guy, and I mean, the problem with Twisted into Form was it came out when I was totally into death and black metal and getting into tape training, so it just passed me by. Whereas Forbidden Evil hit perfectly in '88, where that's all I was interested in, you know. But
I think it's a great record, and like especially for around that time, it's a pinnacle for. I don't really think that much of the Sacred Reich or, you know, Heathen albums from around that era or whatever. Like, I think
Victims of
Arise by Sepultura is the only one's close for 91.
No, hang on. 88 then is Victims of Deception, Heathen. 88 is Schizophrenia by Sepultura. So what's the...
It's 87.
Is it? So, I mean, it was Shark Records re-release in Europe. So we got it a bit after them. But like I don't know, like there's something about that lightning in a bottle of some of those early records, though, but especially, as you say, Forbidden Evil just has I mean, look, it's hard to beat that singing, isn't it, really?
Yeah, he's amazing. Like, and it is one of the things where a lot of the time you get into that situation where the singer is part of the reason why you love it, and I was just going to bring him up, you know.
What color is your No Place for Disgrace?
All European variants on vinyl are navy or purple.
Purple.
Yeah, and all the CDs across in Europe are black, and in America, the CD and the vinyl is purple. So the only black variant really is the CD.
My variant on cassette is black with red and yellow.
Oh, okay.
But
I asked Eric AK why that was, and he was all like, he obviously had no idea what I was talking about.
This is, I mean, you are like the only other person I ever met who holds this album in such reverence. I mean, this is absolute like top.
Yeah, because I think as much as we're talking about like Forbidden Evil is amazing, but I think that this is way better album. You know, like Dreams of Death. There's so many fantastic tunes on this, and
I mean,
the guitar playing and singing is just killer. Like
I hated them for the Elton John cover, the Saturday Nights Are Funny. I just didn't understand, what the fuck are you doing? Stop with these bullshit covers. Because I'm getting super into tape trading and into Morbid Angel demos and blah blah.
But now we know what.
Yeah.
Well, you know, man, I think that was again the thing. Like Elektra Records, you know, they wanted to find out how they were going to get this band to sell 1 million records, and that was how they thought it was going to happen.
I mean, but they are. I mean, those first 2 records, but this especially is super overlooked in my opinion. I mean, I know you agree, but like, it's how is that so overlooked as a thrash classic? You know.
Because same as Forbidden, that actually the audience for that kind of like high melodic priest influence kind of singing is not actually that big. You know, a lot of people who got into that sort of music, it got into it through Metallica and Slayer and stuff like that, and they weren't really used to hearing this aggressive music with a tuneful singing on it. You know.
Do you think so? Do you think that's what it is? Do you think it's because people wanted kind of more? That was good.
Yeah.
They wanted more gruff kind of stuff, or
I think that like people associated the music with like aggro singing. Like if I met someone, you know, from down the country and said I'm in a heavy metal band, they would assume that the singing went instead of well, you know.
Do that again.
We were going to have a song called Jub Jub and have that where the lyrics were just going to go jub 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 jub.
But well, I mean, maybe, but the thing about Flotsam though is that after this, they just didn't know what the fuck to do, though, did they? You know?
Well, like I think they got the sack from Elektra for not, you know, bringing the goods, and then they went to MCA and did a couple albums for MCA, and then got sacked for not being able. But they were specifically told whenever they signed with MCA not to try and pursue a career in thrash. They said you're not going to succeed. This is like verbatim. You're not going to succeed playing thrash music, and if you want to succeed, you're going to have to try and do something else.
It's so bizarre, isn't it? I mean, it seems like such an because we're underground dudes. So looking back, it seems like such an oversight that a record label would say to you, "Hey, don't mind the 40,000 people who love your band. Fuck them.
Yeah,
we're trying to reach 400,000," and everybody went, "Oh, okay. Well, we'll."
But that is exactly what Flotsam and Jetsam did after the No Place for Disgrace tour.
And that's when The Storm Comes Down. The next one, isn't it?
They didn't play again in Europe until 1997. You know, their biggest market, you know, where people were like into that kind of shit, and bands like Fate's Warning or Overkill were forging real careers.
Yeah, I mean,
and they were just like, you know, we're just gonna tour America until 1995, and then
amazing though. Isn't it amazing how quickly things fell apart? I mean, look at Forbidden. They released this album Green, which is sort of like, you know, Testament or Exodus did. What's that fucking Not Low? What's the Exodus album for?
Force of Habit.
Force of Habit. And they all tried to be like COC and sort of riffing.
Yeah.
You got a cat in your background.
Sure do. Plenty of cats.
Plenty of cats.
So, but yeah, I think that's the deal, man. It was such was the landscape that bands like that were thinking, if you can't break America, what's the point in going to Europe, you know? And that was the thinking for like bands like Forbidden and Flotsam and Jetsam couldn't get a European tour, and that was their problem in 1992. You know, if they had that lifeline, they probably could have kept on making records that would have pleased their fans, you know.
And it's weird because at the time the death metal scene, the nascent death metal scene is touring Europe and doing well.
Yep.
Angel, Deicide, or whatever, and that just literally left those bands in the dust. I mean, there was no audience for them anymore.
As you said, like I was listening to your interview with Lilker, and he was saying Nuclear Assault were playing some festival in Holland in 1992, and you know, Deicide were on after them or whatever, and they were making fun of Deicide, and Dan Liker was like, well, why do you think they're on after us when 2 years ago they were on supporting us, you know?
Yeah. I mean, that was that like 1990, oddly enough, even though there was Clash of the Titans, it was the death knell of thrash metal in a sense, because 1990, you have this big tour, but everything that was underneath was about to be swept away by death metal. And thrash, a lot of thrash didn't know where to go. A lot of bands going into this sort of acousticy, funky, where the fuck do we go thing, and then Deicide or Morbid Angel or whoever, and then of course black metal's around the corner to kick it even further into touch, and it just didn't speak to anybody anymore because the 90s was a whole different sort of
totally different bag. And the problem that a lot of those bands also had was that they were successful enough to theoretically be touring on their own, but they weren't in a situation same as like the Death Crusher tour or whatever, where a whole bunch new bands could get together. You know, that's what they needed, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like if you could have got Flotsam Jetsam Forbidden and Armored Saint to go and do 70 dates in Europe in 1992, it probably would have went really well for them, you know. And by really well, I mean there would have been 1,000 people there, you know.
I'm not sure about the. I mean, it would have done okay, but maybe, I mean, I don't think it'd been that big, but it certainly would have done okay, and it would have maybe, but they needed to change, you know. Where were they going to change to? I mean, were Flotsam and Jetsam going to all of a sudden all introduce death metal vocals, or were they going to go like grungy, or like there was nowhere for them to go, in a sense, because on the one side it was like, you know, COC and Danzig and you know, sort of, and grungy kind of Sabbathy stuff, and the other side was death metal, and I'm not sure there was a place for sort of melodic post thrash metal with clean singing.
It's a difficult one, like, because something like Flotsam and Jetsam, Quattro, you know, they sold 350,000 copies of that album in America.
I don't believe that at all. We argued this before, but they can't have sold that many. That's
there's 5 music videos from that record now. You know,
I still don't believe it. There's no way they could have sold that many records. I mean, that many records in 1992 is more than. I mean, it's 35,000, maybe 350. I cannot believe that. I think someone has added.
Well, it's not one of these Exciter jobs, you know, where if you go onto Exciter's Facebook page or Wikipedia, it says that they've sold 6 million albums, and you're like, where did Exciter sell 6 million? But apparently, yeah, like Quattro was a big success.
I cannot
in America, but
I cannot believe that. Well, you used to be able to look up that Metal Sludge site and look up sales of bands and stuff. And I mean, there were bands way bigger than them who were doing 100,000, 200,000, Manowar, Overkill, Sabotage, etc. Cannot believe that Flotsam and Jetsam were doing 350,000. That cannot be true. I would say.
Well, someone out there in the comments will have some sort of connection with someone that can do our homework for us.
Well, what label is it
on? MCA.
I can't believe it, because I know that there were bands who were much bigger than that and pulling more people, who were selling way less than that. And
no, I don't think they ever got past the point in America of like pulling like maybe 1,000 people to their shows. Like, I don't think they ever graduated out of there.
But,
you know?
But okay, if you're in theory selling 350,000 records, you've got to be pulling more than. I mean, and they weren't pulling 1,000 people. Let's be more clear. They were pulling 100, 200 people. It just doesn't add up. I can't. That's a lot of records for even. I mean, for a thrash metal, but that would put them in the top 10, 20 thrash metal bands. 10 even. I mean, that would put them selling more than Suicidal Tendencies.
No, they wouldn't. No way.
Oh, of course, they
like Suicidal Tendencies on Lights Camera Revolution.
Yeah, of course. Of course, but my point
did very, very well, didn't it?
Of course, but my point is they were nowhere near that. They couldn't. They were not even within touching distance of a Souls in Black or a Lights Camera Revolution. They couldn't have been. To me,
I would stake cash on it. I'll bet you a couple of beers that they definitely sold more copies of Quattro than they did Souls of Black. Well, actually, the Ritual was pretty successful, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Surprisingly, it did pretty good for them.
Okay,
didn't it?
How many beers do you bet?
Well, they're gonna have to be real in the pub beers, so let's say 4 pints.
In the pub beers and a new pair of €5 glasses. What do you think about that?
Lidl's best.
You know what it says on the back of this T-shirt?
Eat lead, you dirty rotten red.
It says, "Fuck you, Iran."
Hey, Iran, fuck you.
It says Tour 1986 in a hand grenade. It's just written in a hand grenade, "Fuck you, Iran, Tour 86." I love it. That's what you want, right?
I've got a retaliatory strike T-shirt in the house, but it's not an OG, unfortunately.
Yeah, that was the shirt I was wearing going to see them in 80 or 2008 or whatever it was. It's like, I waited 20 years for you to come to Europe, etc., etc.
He was dead sound though. That's where I first met you actually at that gig, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, we were supposed to not get along, and then sure, here we are. Look at it. You know what I mean? What are your other conversation points? Do you have any more? I was going to ask you why is the production so weird on this record?
Dream Evil.
Isn't it weird?
It is.
It's really
like it's also like that's a weird thing, isn't it? Like it's weird that Dio and Megadeth and Sabotage did that tour. It seems like a mad arena build.
Say that bit again. You got stuck in the matrix there. Say it again.
It seems like such a mad arena bill having Sabotage doing Hall of the Mountain King, Megadeth, So Far So Good, So What, and Dream Evil. Like, you know, I can just imagine it was really echoey sounding in the arena and just weird.
I mean, I love the record, but what I wanted to do was to go like, why? Because Holy Diver is one of the most amazingly produced records ever made. I mean,
oh man, I would probably say that I prefer the second album. Like I think Last in Line.
Yeah. Well, okay. Let me ask you this, right? You're in the rehearsal room and let's say you're writing We Rock, and whoever's singing goes, yeah, the song's called We Rock. I mean, does a part of you go, well, are we sure?
I would say when is the bit in the song when we all shout, hey, really loudly, because that has to happen, right?
But there must be no concept of even any second guessing. Like if you write a song called We Rock, it means you have to be so sure that you rock. You're like, yeah, let's write a song about how much we rock. I mean, could you say that?
See how we rock is what he says as well.
Yeah. It's an invitation. Do you know what I mean? To see how much they rock. But like, if you've written that song, well then, I mean, you're pretty confident that you rock.
Well, they already know they rock because they made, you know, the Dio album, didn't they? Like they made the first album, Holy Dio.
So what you're saying is that, look, we know it already. We're just trying to impart the information to you.
Now, how come we didn't talk about that one? We're talking about special VHSs, Dio Special at the Spectrum. What a great one that one was.
With the sword fighting and with the dragon. Wow.
Yep.
I mean, it is incredible. I mean, it's like fucking goosebumpy, you know what I mean? It's just incredible, isn't it?
Apparently, whenever Manowar came to Belfast in like 1987, the support band and them Charion had a sword fight as an interlude between the two band sets. Like
Chariot.
Yeah. Is that what they're called? Chariot, is it?
Yeah. And they did that. Well, yeah, because in Dublin, the big news was that Eric Adams' ball bag popped out of his side of his pants.
Nice.
And my mother wouldn't let me go. I was a Manowar fan. I knew they were playing. I'd never been to a gig before. I was 12, and my mother quite wisely went, "You're too small. You're too young to go to that. Yep. You just forget it." I have the shirt from the show, but my mother quite wisely went, "Come on, stop now."
I wonder, was there a good turnout for that then?
I heard that everyone said they were there, but there was only about 150, 200 people there.
Because whenever I saw him in Belfast doing the Battle Hymns 20th anniversary or whatever the fuck it was,
Dublin was about like 600, 500.
Well, no, what do you call it? Mandela Hall definitely holds 1,000, and yeah, I would say about 400 or 500 people were there max. Like, you know,
yeah, same as in Dublin, and it was not bad enough to hate, not good enough to love.
I'm glad I went to see them. I thought, and I was like, getting to see them somewhere like that is great compared to. I would not like to go and see them in Europe where there's hundreds of people drinking out of horns and all that sort of stuff. Like, you know.
Yeah. Unlike playing a gig to like Gama Bomb fans who are all there, you know, dressed in Philly's pants or whatever's going on.
You sit about and talk to those people about interesting topics instead of. I get the fan that like all those people who drink out of those horns would be like, let's talk about Stradivarius or Ed Guy or someone like that. You know.
You know, Ed Guy have a song called what's it called? I am I, you are you, in brackets. Nice. Listen,
but they were just all like, you know, Warlock, we're on to something with that, you know. So let's expand on the theme, you know.
Speaking of Viking horns, I once played on a football team with members of Amon Amarth. Beat that. What do you think of that?
Wow.
It was on Swedish cable TV.
I had a cigarette with Morgan Freeman once. That's kind of like that, isn't it? Although apparently he's a dodgy person now, so maybe I should be not promoting that.
We're all going to be dodgy when we're 80. I think your story beats mine, in fairness. You know, it was on Swedish cable TV, and it was like a football competition connected to a festival.
Right.
Very lovely people who ran it, and they had like a 7-a-side pitch, proper pitch. It was filmed and everything, and the local football team won it every year. But we came second that year. Necrophobic, grave, Amon Amarth, merciless guys, kicking and hacking people. And here's a fucking mental story, right? I met the guys and who organize it, and I don't think they really understood my English or whatever. Very lovely people. And then the next year I got invited back, and I got this guy collected me from the airport, and he looked at me and he goes, he's like, hang on, Swedish. So he goes, hello. So you are, what team do you play for? I'm like, what? And he goes, oh, what? What team in Ireland do you play for? Driving his car. And I'm like, what are you talking about, man? He goes, they're like, oh, do you think I'm like a professional footballer? And he's like,
what you can say, are you a Catholic or a Protestant?
No, he's there like, you are playing for like Shamrock Rovers or Bohemians or something, like Irish football team. And I said, hey, I'm playing in Primordial. How do you think I'm a professional footballer? He goes, I just heard that you are the football guy. So you are playing for the heavy metal team with Amon Amarth, and you are the semi-professional footballer. I was like, so you think I'm like a, hard rocking maniac on the one hand, and then go and play for Shamrock on the bows on the other side, which I would love.
Burning the candle at both ends.
I would love it, admittedly, to be taking the field for the bows. But yeah, the whole people who organized it were like, did you bring your boots, kind of thing? And I'm like, where have you got this from? But apparently a mistranslation by just somebody who just saw an interview with me talking about football. They thought I was like a footballer for Bohemians and Shamrock Rovers. And so they were like, you will come over and captain the team.
Or the alternative was that you had been telling people that when you were pissed, like backstage, being like, yeah, man, fucking had a couple of tryouts for the Rovers,
Yeah, me and I was out with the Hamilton Ackies for a while. Yeah, no, so they thought I was like a proper footballer. Now, I'm okay in football, but certainly our team with Merciless, Grave, Entombed, LG, rest in power, LG, and all these kind of people, we came second that year. And it's on.
Do you think Maiden were legitimately killer? Like, do you think they would have been? Apparently, Sepultura were very good as well back in the day. Like,
there's no doubt that they must have been. Yeah, we had a good team. Yeah. Anyway,
I think Brazil would have beaten Maiden on penalties if they were playing football with each other, would they? Did you watch the Ireland match the other night? Did you?
Hang on. Go back. So this is a hypothetical Sepultura 92 5-a-side versus
Maiden 85, Maiden 84 or 83. Whenever they were like still way into everyone's playing.
Right,
I think by the like early 90s, people like Dave Murray was like going to play golf.
Who's on the Maiden team? Joe Elliott and like.
Well, just the team, Iron Maiden plus a couple of lads from fucking Def Leppard or whoever you fancy.
Sure, Joe Elliott, as well. Against Sepultura.
For the lad with the moustache from Saxon who got fired, him.
Yeah. So that's it, and they're against Sepultura. Let's say Sepultura, Sarcophago, like a South American 5-a-side 92.
Yep.
I think Steve Harris is putting in the tackles, but I think
he seems like the sort of lad that you would be getting red carded immediately.
Absolutely, but nobody wants to send him off, a bit like Ronaldo. I would say Maiden getting.
You'd have Nico in nets, would you?
Yeah, you'd have to. I mean, and Maiden getting stuck in, but like the South Americans, they got sneaky skills. Man.
Yep. The rule of thumb is if you're from a country that it's really hot, so the children want to stand about playing football outside all day, every day. That's why someone like Portugal will always beat Ireland because.
Yeah, I mean, have you ever played football against South Americans or North African guys, or I
see the story of any Irish athlete who's ever tried to do fucking anything hot in a hot country, like Barry McGuigan and stuff. Like it's like 30 degrees, and they're like, man, I'm gonna die in this heat.
I'll tell you what defines them against us is that I play football with a bunch of lads from there's Moroccans, there's Libyans, there's Tunisian guys, and they play with and the South American guys. There's a little bit of spicy cheating going on, but they play with a great sense of like just fun and joy. And all the grumpy Irish heads are like, because we played in like rain and hoofing the ball and fouling and kicking. Alan, why you fouled me? And I go, because you went around me the last time. And they go, oh yeah, hang on. You're a grown man now. You're not 16 anymore. You don't have to kick anyone who goes by it. But sure, isn't that the Irish way?
Sliding tackles. That's it, man.